The walls are about to come tumbling down. I don't know whatever. Humpty Dumpty sat on Tim Walz. Humpty Dumpty had a great falls. You know, it's all coming crashing down around Tim Walz. He could be arrested any day now. I mean, really, and this is not like what do you call it? Hyperbole. This is not wishful thinking. There is stuff in. I'll be honest with you. When this Fed chair investigation from the DOJ came down, I thought to myself, man, Tim Walz had better watch out, because Donald Trump and the DOJ and the folks in the government, they don't take crap from anyone. Donald Trump and the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C., they've now started an investigation and called a grand jury to hear evidence about the Federal Reserve building being, I guess, a money pit. And Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, is under investigation now for, I don't know what, embezzlement, misappropriation of funds, spending $2.3 billion on a really old building when you don't necessarily need to spend anywhere near that. He released this crazy statement. He released this crazy thing with what was it? Like when you're in captivity and you have to release a video, like a proof of life video. This was crazy.
Good evening. On Friday, the Department of Justice served the Federal Reserve with grand jury subpoenas, threatening a criminal indictment related to my testimony before the Senate Banking Committee last June. That testimony concerned, in part, a multi-year project to renovate historic Federal Reserve office buildings. I have deep respect for the rule of law and for accountability in our democracy. No one, certainly not the chair of the Federal Reserve, is above the law. But this unprecedented action should be seen in the broader context of the administration's threats and ongoing pressure.
Yeah, that's it. He's like, look, you don't look at this for what it is. This is not an investigation into some kind of, malpractice when it comes to government funds for the Taj Mahal, or the Taj Mahal on the Mall, as they call it, which is the new Federal Reserve building. This should be seen as Donald Trump being mad at me because I won't lower the Federal Reserve rates. This should be seen as President Donald Trump attacking me with potential legal trouble because I won't do what he says. And that's Jerome Powell's take. Now, Donald Trump says he has no idea what's going on. Donald Trump says, I don't control the Department of Justice. This is an ongoing investigation because of fraud, because of Doge. Tim Burchett is now in charge of the Doge committee now that Marjorie Taylor Greene is gone. And Tim Burchett is not going to let anyone in Washington, D.C. waste your tax dollars. He's not going to let anyone waste your money. That's not what Tim Burchett's all about. Tim Burchett's all about protecting you, protecting your money, protecting you from government waste and fraud and abuse, of which there is a lot. And most of it comes from, Minnesota, where Tim Walz just moments ago, just before we went live today, Tim Walz was walking around where this woman ran into this ICE agent and was shot. Look at this.
Crime scene investigation where Renee Good was shot. This was moments ago. We believe we saw Governor Walz's wife with him as well, with her arm wrapped around a gentleman at one point. So Governor Tim Walz and his wife making an official visit to the shooting location of Renee Good here in Minneapolis. Harris, back to you.
Yeah.
Matt Finn, thank you very much. Democrats have been
so Tim Walz is out there and he's wandering around. He's he's scoping out the scene. He's meeting with people. He's there making a big political scene about it. But at the same time, he is himself under investigation. In fact, Scott Bessent from the Treasury Department, Treasury Secretary, he traveled to Minnesota because, not only is there this very convenient ICE shooting that the media is taking advantage of so that you can focus on ICE activities in Minnesota and maybe forget about the massive amount of fraud that the Somali community has been involved with. Maybe, it's so convenient that this is happening right now and that the Democrats don't have to worry about the Somali fraud operations because they're determined to get ICE to be the enemy in this situation in Minneapolis, Minnesota. But Scott Bessent goes in there and he's like, look, we're not at all going to let this go. We're going to go in and we're going to investigate. And Scott Bessent was denied protection while at the state capitol by none other than Governor Tim Walz.
But one curious detail, this interview was originally scheduled for the Minnesota State Capitol. Can you explain why that didn't come to pass and why we're here?
For one reason, Chris, Tim Walz is a coward. He is a coward. He would not guarantee that the Treasury Secretary of the United States of America would have police protection in the Minnesota state capitol. He is afraid of what is coming. And he's not going to be able to hide behind this curtain, because we will get there. And I don't have to go in the Capitol building to investigate him. I would love for him to come to Treasury and answer some questions. I can guarantee you that he will be safe and sound then, depending on what we discover. I don't know about his future. And as I said earlier, that will be the only view of the Oval Office he ever gets, because let's just think about the long arc of history. The suppression of this story is this guy got to within could have been one heartbeat away from being president of the United States. And when we don't have a functioning mainstream media and great independent journalists like you, citizen journalists who go out and do the investigative work, because the people who are supposed to be doing it don't do it anymore.
Yeah. So Tim Walz is under investigation by the Treasury Department. Tim Walz is under investigation by countless other departments. And the fraud in Minneapolis will not be forgotten, no matter what's going on with the ICE agents. In fact, get this: the Minnesota government they have been covering up all kinds of questionable expenditures for a very long time. And they've got a lot of whistleblowers who are coming out. And there are some, it's very interesting, there are some media outlets that are actually trying to dig into this.
This was definitely the most egregious thing I have seen, maybe in my whole time working at OLA.
Office of the Legislative Auditor released a damning report finding state employees fabricating records to cover up mismanagement of money, tax money. It's another black eye for the State Department of Human Services.
27 years with the Office of the Legislative Auditor, a statement like that from Judy Randall means something. After past suspicions, she says her most recent audit proved state workers were fabricating documents to cover up mismanagement of taxpayer money.
So these documents should exist. They didn't. We asked for them. All of a sudden, they now exist. And in at least one case, it was created wholesale and backdated.
Look at that. Look at that. Wholesale, backdated. We asked for documents. They didn't exist. The documents didn't exist. And then we asked for them. Then all of a sudden, whoopsie, there they are. It's all one of the most massive fraud investigations that's boiling up to the surface. And even Mayor Fry was asked about it on NBC's Meet the Press, which I was shocked about. They had they had tireless Mayor Fry on there, and he was asked all about it, and he actually threw Tim Walz under the bus and said, yeah, you know what? This is a huge problem.
Let me ask you about the leadership in your state. Dozens of people in Minnesota have been charged and convicted with stealing millions of dollars of taxpayer money for government programs. Do you think Governor Walz did enough to stop the fraud in your state? And do you support his decision not to run for re-election?
Well, look, Governor Walz is the reason that we've got paid family leave in Minnesota. He's the reason we've got free school lunches. Him and I, we've been through thick and thin.
But did he do enough to combat fraud,
over these
Mayor?
past 5
Did he do
years?
enough to combat fraud?
Look, obviously everybody could have done more to prevent fraud. And I think that's a fair point to make. Do more to prevent fraud. And you look what he's doing right now. He's setting up a whole bunch of infrastructure to do that. And by the way, look, the fraud's real. We've all got to acknowledge it. The fraud is very real. And by the way, when somebody commits fraud, and there are many that have done that, you investigate it, you charge, you prosecute, and you put the person in jail. As an individual, you put the person in jail as an individual. You do not hold an entire community, any community, accountable for the actions of individuals.
Okay, so let's put Tim Walz in jail. That's basically what he's saying. He's like, look, you take the individual and you put the individual in jail. If somebody commits fraud, here's what you do. You say, okay, you're going to get charged. We're going to prove that you committed fraud, and then we're going to put you in jail. Now, it could be that of the people you find yourself putting in jail for fraud, a multitude of them are Somali. I mean, I'm sure it's not that we're going after the whole Somali community. We're going after the fraudsters. It just so happens that a large portion of them happen to be Somalian or Tim Walz. And if Tim Walz is culpable, if he's found that he's benefited from this fraud, or he's turned the other cheek, or he has urged state officers and officials, as we just saw from that one clip, if he's helped to cover it all up, if he's accepted campaign donations from the same people that are now being investigated for this fraud, well, then guess what? He is also guilty. And according to Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, he should be in jail. Take the individual, take the person, put that person in jail. And that person is Tampon Tim Walz. And that is something that I think will happen. I mean, look, it's bound to happen eventually. There's no way you can get away with this kind of fraud on this kind of scale, with this kind of national attention on it forever. In fact, I was on Newsmax earlier today, and this was the hot topics of conversation were, of course, what's going on with ICE in Minneapolis, and what's going on, with the protests, and how it all wraps up together. And the question about the Somali fraud, it was brought up on you know what? Since you guys love when I play clips of myself on Newsmax, I'm just going to play the clip of myself on Newsmax.
They're going city to city to try to disrupt.
That, of course, is not it. It is this one. Hang on, right here. And a 5, 6, a 5, 6, 7, 8.
To a volatile weekend as we see protests breaking out across the country against ICE and last week's shooting in Minneapolis. Now, Democrats and the legacy media doubling down on blaming ICE and defending the woman who the feds say tried to run over an agent with her vehicle. Take a listen.
Continue to call on Congress in this moment to use appropriations and the power of the purse to rein in ICE. Again, I believe it should be abolished.
You had a person that was definitively trying to just get out of there. They were trying to leave the scene. That is not a person that's trying to run an ICE agent over. You have a person that is trying to protect our city, to look out for our neighbors.
Some people having guys with masks and no cameras and very aggressive tactics, and at times not having a search warrant, scares people.
In response to that, Mayor there, she was ordered to get out of her vehicle. She wasn't trying to leave the scene, flee the scene. And she's accused of trying to run over an agent. Look, if an immigrant had killed that woman, like Laken Riley, who had turned 24 a couple days ago, we wouldn't have gotten this kind of response. Mark?
Yeah, and first of all, why doesn't Jacob Frey own a tie? The guy's mayor of Minneapolis, Minnesota. You always see him with his shirt wide open. I don't get that. Second of all, it's amazing to me. I can't remember a time in our recent history where we've seen video evidence of what happened. Right. And there's an entire half of the country that is interpreting it totally differently. Now that we have the aspect of the officer who was in front of the car, we've got people on the left, including Ilhan Omar, saying he jumped in front of a moving vehicle. What was he expected to do? It's amazing how real evidence nowadays can be skewed by the political affiliation of one party. But you're absolutely right about that. What we've all seen now repeatedly is a woman who was told to get out of her car and did not. And had she gotten out of her car, this probably would have turned out totally differently. She probably would still be alive. And, we wouldn't be seeing these massive protests and all this unrest again in Minneapolis. Yeah, they would have found something else to protest about. But the fact that this shooting happened is something that they've glommed onto. It's something that they've taken as their cause du jour because it creates a stir. It gives them something to rally around as a party, and it can emotionally trigger people to vote the wrong way in the 2026 election, which is what it's all about. In fact,
and we're still seeing.
In fact, I want to get to this next segment, which is all about what Abby Phillips said on CNN. Listen to this. This is crazy. Abby Phillips on CNN. Well, I'll just play it for you.
Because the actual victims of this fraud are probably actually Somali families.
I think
I don't know about
victims
that. Yes.
are taxpayers.
Taxpayers
victims
lost
are
$9
people who
Somalis are taxpayers.
Hold on.
They are announced.
Yes, they are.
I want to get into data.
Hold on.
Yes, they are.
80% of them are on welfare.
Taxpayers are the victims. I mean, if you didn't catch that, the conservative commentators pointed out that 81% of Somali people in Minnesota receive some sort of welfare. What's your reaction to that, Mark?
Well, basically what she's saying is, since I'm in Florida, if I went out and robbed a Florida bank, I would actually be the victim of that robbery. It doesn't really doesn't really make any sense. But then again, it's a left-wing CNN kind of protocol. The Somalis are not just the victims because, yes, some of them pay taxpayers, but what we're seeing with these daycare centers and transportation centers and welfare food centers that just didn't exist is they're also the perpetrators of the crime. And if you're the perpetrator of the crime, you've got to do the time. Now, you're right. That's why ICE went in there, because they said, look, if these people are immigrants and they're here illegally and they're defrauding the government, then they have to go. And ICE's mission across the globe or across the world, across the nation, is not to just harass people. It's to get criminals off the street. The problem you're seeing is that there's a lot of left-wing lunatics out there who would like to harass ICE while they're trying to keep the United States safer. And it's all for optics so that they can, as you pointed out, fundraise and get people, sentimentally involved in the midterm elections. Yeah, that's what it's all about. Remember, it's an election year. 2026 is an election year. It's all about the midterms. It's all about how can we get out there and win seats. It's all about how can we fundraise off of this? Where can we get our money from? Everything has to do with power. And if there's a shooting in Minneapolis, you have a lot of Democrat operatives who are publicly mourning the victim and publicly angry that ICE is even on the ground there. And they are publicly screaming and yelling and showing how they are in allegiance with everyone in Minneapolis. But privately, they're like, woohoo, thank God this happened. They are cheering. Yay, somebody got shot by an ICE officer. That's exactly what we needed to make sure that we can and continue to push this anti-ICE message and maybe get some more votes in the midterms and make sure that we retain power. There's a clip going around with Ilhan Omar, speaking of which, and it's really interesting to me too, and I said this in the Newsmax clip, I can't remember a news story where you had evidence, empirical evidence, video evidence that was shown repeatedly around the world. I mean, it's on Instagram, it's on X, it's everywhere. This video is popping up on TV. The video that comes out from the point of view of the officer pretty much proves that the officer was A, hit by a car, and was B, acting in self-defense. And the left glommed onto it and tried to spin it in a way that is just, if I hadn't been doing this for as many years as I've been doing it, I totally wouldn't believe it. If I haven't been doing this as long as I've been doing it, I wouldn't believe that the left could come up with this kind of a ridiculous narrative, but they sure did. Ilhan Omar is explaining in this instance that the officer jumped in front of the moving vehicle, and as a veteran of ICE, he should know better than that.
If they are saying that he has 10 years on service and is trained, he should know that you shouldn't be trying to get in front of a moving car. And
yeah, so her take is the car was moving, and this ICE agent who 10 years experience should know you don't jump in front of a moving car. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have 10 years of experience or training with the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Department. I don't have any I don't have any law enforcement training whatsoever. And I know not to jump in front of a moving vehicle. But that's not what happened here. The officer was walking around the vehicle to help apprehend the woman who refused to get out of her car when ordered to do so by federal law enforcement agents, and she gunned it while he was standing in front of her. He didn't jump in front of the car. He was walking around the car while it was stopped. She put the vehicle in motion and clipped him, so he put a bullet in the windshield and unfortunately took her life. But he did it to save his own. Jump in. It's really... It's statements like these that I don't understand. I don't know exactly what kind of power they have there in the Congress, but it's statements like these. He should have known better than to jump in front of a moving vehicle.
If they are saying that he has 10 years on service and is trained, he should know that you shouldn't be trying to get in front of a moving car.
Is that part of law enforcement training? Is that I know they train you on the law, they train you on safe apprehension techniques, they train you on, Miranda rights, they train you on how to use a weapon appropriately, when to use your weapon, that kind of thing. Do they have a whole training segment on not jumping in front of motor vehicles? Are they like, oh, by the way, if a car's speeding toward you, don't jump in front of it? Is that actually a thing? I don't think that's a thing. Fun fact, I don't think Ilhan Omar understands what she's talking about. In fact, I know for a fact that Ilhan Omar doesn't know what she's talking about. Mark Warner also doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to ICE. And I have that clip right here. Mark Warner from Virginia. Listen to this.
They're going city to city to try to disrupt authorities from lawfully executing whatever their job is. Disrupt, stop, obstruct what they're trying to do. That's against the law. That's not something that Democrats or anyone should be ginning up and telling people to do. Now, I know Trump has deported or sent back 350, 400,000 people. Barack Obama, your guy, as you called Trump, but my guy, it was 5 million. It was 5 million over 8 years. Now we're at 350,000. What changed with Democrats on it? I know Biden let in 12 million. Is it about votes? Why did these people, why isn't it a crime to be here? Not that they haven't committed a crime.
The border being as open as it was under Biden was one of the reasons Trump got elected. But the idea...
So you're glad it's closed now?
Do I think we ought to not have a fully open border? Absolutely. I've said that all along.
So with the 12 million that came in, what do we do?
The question I have for you is closing the border versus sending out ICE agents across the country to randomly pick up people based on quotas that have committed no crime.
How did Obama deport 5 million?
Done at the border. I think it was a lot of that was done at the border.
They were sent back.
And the truth is, I don't think the American people signed up for this, where you see people who are working. There ought to be a path towards legality. We've worked on that. We've screwed that up, immigration reform, for years, both sides. But the idea that we're going to send in these ICE agents, by the way, Joe, do you realize ICE used to take 5 to 6 months to get trained? They've now lowered the training period to 47 days.
By the way, how great is that? First of all, raise your hand if you sign up for that. I remember signing up for this. I remember going to the polls. I remember going, Pokemon Go to the polls and vote for President Donald Trump. That's exactly what I did. I Pokemon went to the polls. I voted for President Donald Trump because he told me, A, he was going to close the border, which he did. Congratulations. Mission accomplished. And then he said he was going to begin the most massive deportation effort in history and start getting the illegal immigrants who were here back home. Because as we know, these aren't just the hardworking people. These are criminals, and these are drug dealers, and these are gang members, and these are people that are trafficking individuals and trafficking drugs. And these are folks that have, a litany of criminal activity and outstanding arrest warrants, and have been in jail or are coming from jails in Venezuela and in Mexico and in El Salvador and all these other places. People coming from insane. These are not the best of the best that they were sending here. And that is part of the problem. Mark Warner can't, on one hand, say, I'm glad the border is shut down now, but oh, by the way, we should keep the 50 million illegal aliens who Joe Biden kept in. If that's your case, then you are, first of all, you're just playing both sides. You're just basically saying, I want support of Democrats and Republicans, so yes, close the border, but no, don't deport anybody. You can't have it both ways. And ICE is not running around and just snatching people off the street. They're not disappearing innocent folks like they try to tell you. They're out there and they are trying to find the criminals, get the criminals, and take the criminals out. And if you are in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and there's now, there's fraud in the Somali community. All these Somali immigrants are committing this fraud. Well, you know what we should do? We should make sure that they're here legally. We should make sure that these Somali immigrants are here illegally. And if they're defrauding the United States of America, maybe they shouldn't be here at all. Because if you commit a crime, if you commit a felony, as it's my understanding, as a naturalized citizen of the United States of America, if you commit a felony, you could have your citizenship taken away and you could be deported back to your homeland. That's what they told me. I don't know if they were just lying to me. I don't know if they were trying to keep me from committing any felonies, but it worked. Because so far, I'm felony free. As far as I know, I haven't done anything on purpose. The 51 years old and felony free, that's me. I can't say the same for the Somali immigrants or a lot of other immigrants who are here in the United States taking advantage of the system. So Tim Walz is in the hot seat. And he's got Scott Bessent breathing down his neck. He's got the mayor throwing him under the bus, and he's got everybody at the State House now turning on him because guess what? He's not coming back. And that may have actually been one of his biggest downfalls. Think about this. Tim Walz, the Democrat Party comes to you and says, you can't run for a third term. And you go, why not? He goes, because we know what you did. We know what you did last summer and the summer before that and the summer before that. We're not gonna lose the state of Minnesota because of you. So you're going to step down. You're not going to run, and we're going to install Amy Klobuchar instead. Well, if you work in Governor Walz's office, if you work for Tampon Tim and whether you like him or not, whether you voted for him or not, if you work in the government and you know this guy's not coming back, guess what? You're more likely to step up and say, hey, here's what this guy told me to do when he was governor. Here's how this guy lied when he was governor. Listen to all this stuff this guy said when he was governor. This guy is a fraudster. And he's got everybody now turning on him and trying to take him down. Donald Trump was asked a little bit about that. Donald Trump was on Air Force One. And Donald Trump was on Air Force One, and he was asked a question. First of all, there was where was it? There was some turbulence. This is the media for you. There was some turbulence on Air Force One. And Donald Trump was standing, where he stands, like in between whatever. There's no handles or anything to grab onto. And Caroline Leavitt is standing behind him. And he said something about not grabbing her to stabilize himself. And the left turned it. Well, let me play you the clip first of all.
When will you meet with Machado this week?
Looking for something to grab here because it's going to get rough, and I don't seem to be in a very. I think you did this to me. You put me in a position where there's absolutely nothing to grab.
Mr. President.
So I'm looking for something to grab, and it's not going to be Caroline.
Sir, Mr. President, oil companies make commitments to you, sir.
Yeah. So that was the comment. He's like, look, I'm looking for something to grab. And he turns around and he sees Caroline Leavitt. He goes, well, it's not going to be her. And so what does the media do? Look at this. This is the Daily Beast. Trump 79 makes awkward joke about grabbing Caroline Leavitt in Air Force One turbulence. That's not at all what happened. He literally said, I'm not going to grab. He said, I need something to grab. He turns around and goes, it's not going to be Caroline. And this is exact. Grab me a bucket is what they write underneath. The president mused about using his 28-year-old press secretary to steady him. He actually did the opposite. If you heard the clip that I heard, but that's what the media does. The media always is trying, like it's not the only one. Here we go. The Sunday Guardian. I'm looking for something to grab. It's not Caroline. Trump's comment about, oh, now my internet's, about Caroline Leavitt dominates headlines. Did it? Did it dominate? Oh, the Hindustan Times. If you're reading the Hindustan Times, then which I can't because I'm not allowing ads on the thing. Then yes, you're going to see a creepy headline about Donald Trump saying I'm not going to grab Caroline Leavitt. It's just so one-sided, and it's just something that they do over and over and over and over again. But Donald Trump did ask a lot. He did take a lot of questions. He did give a lot of answers. And one of the big answers, there's a couple things going on in the world. In fact, there's a bunch of things going on in the world. Donald Trump is playing a global game of risk. And he's doing it in a way that, he's not trying to dominate. And this is the differentiation. Donald Trump has been accused of, I guess, trying to grow the United States' footprint, or trying to overcome countries, or regime change, or all this other stuff, trying to steal or invade Greenland, all this kind of thing. Donald Trump really is, and I know that it's difficult for some people to believe, but he is an America First president, despite what Marjorie Taylor Greene will say on The View. Donald Trump is looking at the United States of America, and he says, okay, we are a global superpower. We are dominant. We need to remain dominant. We need to be economically dominant. We need to be technologically dominant. We need to have an infrastructure that supports our dominance. Militarily, forget about it. We've got to spend all this money. We've got to make sure that we have DEI rooted out of our military. And we've got to make sure that we have the most lethal and well-trained military that can execute perfectly in any situation anywhere around the globe. Now, at the same time, we need to keep ourselves safe. And keeping yourself safe from invasion, there's a couple things that happen with that. Number one is the aforementioned military. Number two is the Golden Dome that he wants to build. So if any rockets or anything else comes in, then he will be able to knock them out of the sky. And then you also have to look around and see, okay, where are the threats that we can neutralize? Well, Venezuela, pretty big threat. Venezuela, you had Nicolas Maduro, who a lot of people say was not even supposed to be president because he's basically stole that election or ignored it. He's also working with the cartels to deliver drugs, dangerous drugs to the United States of America. And also he's working with Iran and China and Russia and all these other people who hate the United States and will do anything to kill us given the chance. So, when you're in our hemisphere, when you're this close to our country, and when you're using your power, which you shouldn't have anyway, to harm Americans and to bolster terrorists, then we're going to do something about it. And so Donald Trump arrested Nicolas Maduro. Now he says he actually says we're getting along great with Venezuela.
Venezuela is really working out well. We're working along really well with the leadership, and we'll see how it all works out.
Are we starting the meeting with Dulcie to go?
At some point I'll meet. Yeah, she's been very good. Look, she asked us, can we take 50 million barrels of oil? And I said, yes, we can. It's $4.2 billion. And it's on its way right now to the United States.
Yeah, look at that. It's all this oil is coming to the United States of America. All this oil that they called us up. They said, hey, look, we want to give you all this oil. And Donald Trump said, great, we'll take it. And Chris Wright, the energy secretary, was asked about it. Here's what he said is going to happen.
In the long run, what will happen with Venezuelan oil resources? Yeah, of course, quite likely you'll see American companies, expanded presence there. You'll see growing production. Of course, you're going to see more American involvement in there. But exactly how that's going to work, that's going to unfold over time.
And that is something that we see as a benefit. The other benefit, and it's not a hidden benefit so much as it's just an unreported benefit, is what's going on in Cuba. Because Cuba, again, it's like this close to the United States of America. And if you're listening on the podcast, I'm holding my thumb and my index finger about as close together as I can possibly hold them without them actually touching each other. And that's how close Cuba is to the United States, like 90 miles off the coast of Key West. There are Cuban people who've been coming over here and, the whole Bay of Pigs and everything else. It's like a thing. And Cuba has been under communist rule forever. So if Cuba falls and there's democracy or some kind of new government or a government that is installed that is not in bed with or in cahoots with Russia, well, then that benefits the United States greatly. And it adds to Donald Trump's security blanket across the entire Western Hemisphere. And if Donald Trump adds to his security blanket across the entire Western Hemisphere, it's great for the United States of America because that means a safer country, more investment, you know the thing. And so when you cut off Venezuelan oil, Cuba has absolutely nothing to do. And President Donald Trump said they're going to have to come and deal with us. They can threaten and they can cajole and they can plead and they can say, over our dead bodies, every last ounce of blood. What did they said? They said, we will fight for Cuba with every last ounce of blood. Todo el sangre is what they're saying down there in Cuba. And Donald Trump said, look, you don't have to fight, just make a deal with us.
What kind of deal are you looking for from Cuba?
You're going to find out pretty soon. We're talking to Cuba, and you'll find out pretty soon. And one of the things I want taken care of, and one of the groups I want taken care of, are the people that came from Cuba that were forced out or left under duress, and they're great citizens of the United States right now.
All right.
You have a lot of people forced out of Cuba unfairly, so we're going to take care of, most importantly right now, we're going to take care of the people that came from Cuba that are American citizens or in our country.
Yeah, and that means that Marco Rubio is going to be the president of Cuba. That's the joke. That's the joke of the week. Donald Trump actually somebody posted Marco Rubio should be the president of Cuba. And somebody reposted, or Donald Trump reposted that idea. This was a meme I just saw. It says, Marco Rubio finding out he has to be chairman of the Federal Reserve. That's going to be the next thing. It's like Marco Rubio has to be the chairman of the Federal Reserve. He's got to be president of Cuba. He's got to be national security advisor. He's got to be in charge of USAID. He's got to do all the things. But if anyone could do all of the things, it's Marco Rubio. And when it comes to Cuba, there's nobody else like Marco Rubio who is probably qualified for the job, being a Cuban American and being someone who studied Cuba greatly for a very long time. But it all boils down to keeping the United States safe and strategically positioned to be, to thwart threats. And what better way of getting rid of threats in this hemisphere than by getting rid of communists in this hemisphere? If you have regimes like Venezuela and like Cuba that are buddy-buddy with China and Russia and Iran, I mean, wouldn't you want them to fall? Wouldn't you want them to go away? It does us no good to have China and Russia best buds with folks who are our neighbors. In fact, not only does it not do us any good, it does us the opposite of good, which is bad. And the same thing can be said of Greenland, which is why Donald Trump is making a play for Greenland, which is why Donald Trump is so dead set on Greenland. And Donald Trump is not going to let Greenland go until the United States has control of it. Why? Because two reasons. First of all, yes, strategically, it's important to the United States of America. But he came up with an answer yesterday on Air Force One, which I think is way better. I think he got his sales team on it. I think he got his marketing people on it. And he said, look, people in Greenland are still upset about me wanting to come and get Greenland. People in the United States, they don't understand why we need Greenland. You got to come up with a better way for me to explain this whole Greenland situation. And I think they did it because yesterday he was asked about it. Here's what he said.
If we don't take Greenland, Russia or China will. And I'm not letting that happen. If we don't take Greenland, Russia or China will take Greenland. And I am not going to let that happen.
Is there any deal they can offer you? Either like
yeah, sure. I'd love to make a deal with them. It's easier. But one way or the other, we're going to have Greenland.
One way or the other, we're going to have Greenland. Why? Because look, guys, if we don't take it, China or Russia will. And we can't have that. Greenland is way too close to the United States. It's way too close to Canada. It's way too important to our military stratagem. It is way too rich in valuable resources. If China and Russia make a move to grab Greenland, we 100% will invade. We'd rather not. But this reminds me of the movie National Treasure. Spoiler alert, by the way. I mean, it's like a 25-year-old movie. If you haven't seen it yet, you probably won't. But in National Treasure, Nicolas Cage steals the Declaration of Independence. Why? To protect it from the actual thief, the guy with the long blonde hair, who was going to use the map to get the treasure, the treasure of the Knights Templar to, become rich and take over the world. Nicolas Cage said, we need to protect it. We need to protect the Declaration of Independence. We need to protect it from the wrong people. And we need to make sure that we protect the treasure of the Knights Templar. So what did he do? He stole the Declaration of Independence before it could fall into the evil guy's hands. And that's Donald Trump and Greenland. Donald Trump is like, look, somebody's going to take Greenland. It's either going to be China, which is bad for us. It's going to be Russia, which is super bad for us. Or it's going to be us, which is great for us, great for Greenland, and actually great for the rest of the world. Because think about this. If this guy, who's this idiot? The guy that said NATO will fall. Hang on, let me Google. I want to make sure I get his name right. Chris Murphy. Well, okay, Chris Murphy is one of them. But there's another guy. There was another guy. Chris Murphy is out there, and this guy just hates everything President Donald Trump says. But Chris Murphy says if Donald Trump annexes Greenland, it would be the end of NATO. Oh, yeah? Think about this. What if Russia tries to invade Greenland? Isn't that the end of NATO? That's why we didn't want Ukraine. We didn't want Ukraine to be to take over. We didn't want Russia, rather, to invade. We didn't want Ukraine to be part of NATO because that would have started World War III automatically. If Ukraine were part of NATO and Russia invaded Ukraine, we would all have to go to war with Russia. Well, Greenland is part of Denmark. And so if Russia invades Greenland, then what we see is that we have now Denmark, which was one of the founding members of NATO, now being invaded by Russia. And if Greenland is invaded by Russia, then that is something that the NATO alliance would have to deal with, and it would start World War III. So in an effort to avoid World War III, Donald Trump is saying, give us Greenland, or sell us Greenland, or we'll just take Greenland. Because we are not going to allow NATO to implode and World War III to start over a territory that, let's face it, we would be much better suited to control. That's why Greenland is still a thing. That's why Greenland is still in play. And Donald Trump, look, when he says we're going to take it one way or another, he means it. We know in fact, he yelled at a CNN reporter. I know you're like shocked. You're like, Donald Trump yelled at a CNN reporter? Yes, he did. Donald Trump yelled at a CNN reporter on Air Force One, which I always love. That's one of my favorite things about watching these impromptu press briefings and gaggles and whatnot. This CNN reporter asked President Donald Trump about Iran. Right now in Iran, there's massive protests, which means a lot of people are getting killed. Why? Well, because unlike here in the United States, when people protest, the government just executes them. You know, here in the United States, when people go and march in Minneapolis or when they march on the Washington Mall or whatever, the government just stands there and tear gasses them if they get out of control or lets them break stuff and then arrests them, whatever. But in Iran, they just execute you and they leave your body lying in the street. And that's happening to hundreds and hundreds of people right now who are standing up against the tyranny of the regime in Iran. And so Donald Trump has said, look, we'll help Iran and the Iranians any way that we can. And if it means going in and taking care of business, we'll do that. And a CNN reporter asked, do you think Iran takes you seriously? Here was his response.
I think Iran takes your threats seriously.
I think so. Don't you think so, CNN? Don't you think so? Wouldn't you say that they probably do at this point? After going through it for years with me, being hit, Soleimani, al-Baghdadi, the Iran nuclear threat wiped out. Don't you think, and then you just had Venezuela, don't you think, she says, CNN, do you think they take your threat seriously? Wouldn't you say they do after all of the things we've done? What a stupid question. Go ahead.
Yeah, what a stupid, he just calls it like he sees it. What a stupid question, CNN. That's just a ridiculous question that you would ask. What do you mean? What do you mean? Do we think Iran takes it seriously? Well, they didn't take it seriously when we killed Soleimani, and they didn't take it seriously when we said they were going to get bombed if they didn't stop trying to enrich uranium for nuclear weapons. And look what happened. So yeah, I think at this point they should probably take it seriously. And if they don't, they're going to learn the way Venezuela. Look at Nicolas Maduro. Donald Trump said Nicolas Maduro cannot remain in power. Nicolas Maduro is going to have to come to justice. Venezuela, you got to leave. He moved in ships. He started bombing boats. It was the writing was on the wall. They called up and they said, you can leave now and you can go live quietly somewhere else. We won't even put you in prison. We'll get you an escape plan. And Nicolas Maduro said no. And so Donald Trump said, all right. And in the middle of the night, he sent the CIA and he sent the Delta Force and he killed all the Cubans. And now Nicolas Maduro's in New York City in his Nike tracksuit, which is selling out apparently. Who is going online and buying Nicolas Maduro's tracksuit? I saw that over the weekend. Nicolas Maduro was arrested in this Nike tracksuit, and now apparently it's all sold out. Or hold on, Maduro tracksuit sold, or people were Googling it or something. Hang on, let me find. Yeah, here, look at this. This is from, I can't even read it, from some Asian newspaper. President Maduro captured wearing a Nike tracksuit. Arrest look sells out online. I mean, this is just crazy. This is just crazy. This Nike tracksuit that he was arrested in is now sold out online. Everybody went on. I can't, this is like an AI translation. It's a bad article. Nike. Here we go. South China Morning Post. Nike tracksuit worn by Venezuela's Maduro is selling out after viral photo. Global searches for the distinctive Nike gray hoodie and joggers spike after Venezuela's leader is pictured in U.S. custody. Who's looking at this photo of Nicolas Maduro getting arrested and going, man, I really want that tracksuit? Maybe it's for a Halloween costume. I would say that you'll probably see a lot of these Nicolas Maduro Halloween costumes. Guys in gray Nike tracksuits with the big dark shades on and the headphones and maybe holding a water bottle or whatever it is. But that's probably, yeah, here it is. The Nike Tech Fleece. It has a new name, Operation Absolute Resolve Freedom Tech Fleece. That's kind of funny. So that's what people are doing. And Donald Trump said, look, I'm going to come get you. I don't care what you're wearing, hoodie, schmoody, it doesn't matter. I'm going to come in, I'm going to swoop in, I'm going to get you, and I'm going to bring you to justice. And that's exactly what he did. And that's exactly what is happening. And now President Donald Trump is looking at Iran and he's saying, we're not going to stand for this. We're not going to allow you to kill your citizens because they want freedom. That's not how we roll, Holmes. And if you don't understand, then you soon will. And CNN asking about that is, well, it's like the most CNN thing in the world. There are more clips, by the way, of Ilhan Omar. I'm trying to find them. She was on, I guess she was on Face the Nation. Where is it? Here she is. Okay. So first of all, Ilhan Omar went to Minneapolis and she started to incite violence against ICE by saying they will pay.
You all have refused to back down. You all have decided that this resistance is not one that can be intimidated.
Yeah, and then here's where she says we're going to make sure all these ICE agents pay.
We are going to show all of them the door out. And we are going to make sure that these people pay for what they have done to us.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, that sounds like a threat to me, right? We're going to make sure that these people have paid for what they have done to us. I'll be honest, we've already paid you like $2.8 billion. How much more do we have to pay? How many more billions do we have to pay the Somali community? Like $2.8 billion has already been paid out, but Ilhan Omar is standing on the back of a pickup truck saying we're going to make sure they pay for what they have done to us. Here she is again. Listen to this. She's talking. Margaret Brennan gave her a platform and really didn't question anything she was saying, not like we expected she would. But this was her on Face the Nation yesterday.
Given how much heat there is and the administration's scrutiny, would you tell Americans it's too dangerous to demonstrate and to go out and document as she was doing?
I think it is really important for Americans to record, to create the level of accountability and transparency that we need.
Wow, look at that. So is she saying she's a Nick Shirley fan? Is that what Ilhan Omar is saying? She's saying she's a big fan of Nick Shirley and what he did with the Leering centers in Minneapolis. Sounds like it. She said it's important that as Americans, we go out and we record and we document and we bring a level of transparency that there just hasn't been before. Okay. I agree wholeheartedly with that.
What we have seen in Minneapolis is ICE agents oftentimes jumping out of their cars. These are unmarked cars. Oftentimes they're wearing a mask. They're approaching, running towards cars. They're pulling people out of those cars. Oftentimes these people are citizens. Oftentimes these people have documentation.
Okay. Yes. And this is we've seen ICE agents getting out of their cars, not against the law. We've seen ICE agents wearing masks, yes, for personal protection because people dox them online. And we've seen them pulling citizens out of cars. Okay, sure. They do that if the citizens are spitting on them or hitting them or trailing them or tailing them. And this whole thing about ICE agents and this whole, we saw them arrest citizens. Sure you did, because the citizens were acting a fool. The citizens were breaking the law. If you spit on an ICE agent and you're an American citizen, you will be taken down by ICE and you will be taken to jail. If you try to ram an ICE agent with your car or block them in the street, or if you tail them, or if you harass them in any way, shape, or form, if you get in front of their vehicle, you will be brought to justice because they're law enforcement agents. They'll deport you if you're illegal. They're out there executing search warrants on illegal aliens who've committed crimes. But if you commit a crime while you approach them or in their vicinity or at them, they're still going to take you in. That's still going to happen.
Of their legal right to be in this country. And we know that DHS has lied repeatedly when it comes to these accounts. So it is even more important for there to be recording from eyewitnesses every single time these actions are taking place.
Great. So the Nick Shirley recordings, the eyewitness recordings of empty Leering centers and empty childcare facilities and places where there are no children whatsoever, where they lock the door when you come and knock. All of that, she said, is actually good. We need more of that. And every single American should record. We should all just wear body cams 24/7. That's what it's going to come down to. I'm just going to wear a body cam. I'm just going to wear a body cam all over every single day. And I told you, when I get to Congress, I'm 100% wearing a body cam. I don't care what anybody says. I'm going to be walking around the Capitol building, recording every minute, recording every conversation. I want full transparency.
But do you see from the recordings that we see, is there anything that you believe was being done that should not have been done by Macklin Good? The administration says she was blocking the road. They are claiming this is an act of terrorism.
Yeah, Renee Nicole Good, as you hear her say, she's not mad. She's sitting in her car, peacefully waving cars to get by. This agent, as you see, gets out of his car.
Did she say Asian? Did she say Asian or agent? Oh, my bad. I'm sorry.
Automatically starts running towards her, trying to open her door. She feels scared. She tries to turn the wheel away. And then you see the other officer, who can clearly see the car is moving, move towards the front of the car, which, if they are saying that he...
Okay, now at this point, by the way, Margaret Brennan is just sitting there going, I don't care who you are. I mean, the video evidence is irrefutable. The agent was walking around the car before it was moving. The agent was walking around the car before it was moving. We saw the cell phone footage. He was almost clear of the car when she gunned it and hit him. And she clearly saw that he was in front of her, hit the gas pedal. She hit him. He pulled out his weapon and fired. But Ilhan Omar is now trying to rewrite history and make you think, oh, no, he walked in front of a moving vehicle. She was just peacefully waving people by. If she was peacefully waving people by, why did the ICE agents have to get out of their car and tell her to move? If she was peacefully waving people by, why did these ICE agents have to go and approach her and say, get out of the vehicle because you're blocking our way?
Has 10 years on service and is trained, he should know that you shouldn't be trying to get in front of a moving car. And so... Again,
Margaret Brennan sits there saying absolutely nothing, refuting nothing. This is the problem people have with the media. They don't push back when they're being lied to live on their own program.
It's not acceptable for Kristi Noem and the president and the vice president to make these kind of judgments without there being a full investigation, even though we can see in the videos that have been produced so far that what they are describing is really not what is taking place. And so if they're saying that we shouldn't believe our eyes, then let the investigation take place before you characterize this mother of three as a domestic terrorist.
Yeah, okay. So that was something, by the way, that I think Kristi Noem was asked about. She was on with Jake Tapper, and she just handed it to Jake Tapper.
Doing disservice to the officer by reaching a conclusion before the investigation takes place.
I haven't heard you say once what a disservice it's done for Mayor Fry to get up and to tell ICE to get the F out of his city, and AOC to stand up before she had any of the facts and call this officer a murderer. For individuals, well, call them out, Jake. Spend as much time calling them out.
Okay.
I have provided you with facts and information to back up every single word that we have said and every single part of this investigation. And if you don't like it, that's fine. But we're going to continue to do the right thing to keep the American people safe.
I know that you'd like.
Yeah. So she's like, look, you keep telling me this, you keep telling me that, but you don't talk about anybody else. You don't talk about the other side. You never say anything bad about the other side. You never question why they're calling this ICE agent a murderer, which he doesn't, by the way. He just lets it go. One day, maybe he'll write a book about it. But for right now, he's just going to let it go. And Donald Trump's not backing down either. The Democrats think that they can put pressure on the president of the United States. They can't. You know, you should know by now, President Donald Trump can't be pressured, and he's going to continue to say this woman was in the wrong, because let's be honest, had she gotten out of her car, she would still be here today. Had she gotten out of her car, she would still be alive.
Everyone's seen it, and the woman was very violent. She's a very radical person. Very sad what happened. Her friend was very radical. Go and drive.
Officer, absolute immunity. How would you define that?
Well, I'm going to let the people define it, but immunity, you know what immunity means as well as I do.
So that officer should be back on the force?
People can't be treating law enforcement that way, whether it's ICE or Border Patrol or our police and men and women. You can't do that. We have, the law enforcement in our country is doing really well, despite the fact that Sleepy Joe Biden allowed people to pour through an open border. Crime stats just came out. We have the best crime stats on record. Despite all the criminals he allowed into our country, we've gotten a lot of them out. We have to respect our law enforcement. At a very minimum, that woman was very, very disrespectful to law enforcement. And you heard the same noises. You saw the same crunch that I saw. You can't do that with law enforcement, whether it's police or ICE or Border Patrol or anybody else.
Yeah. And Tom Homan was on Fox News Sunday with Shannon Bream, And he was asked about this. He said, look, the big problem we have is that the media is normalizing this as good stuff.
They want to, they normalize. The media is normalizing interference with ICE. It is a crime to impede ICE officers. Bill Mnuchin just put out a list of 18 of the worst of the worst in Minneapolis. Many of them child sex crimes, child rape, child sodomy. These are the people we're looking for. For anybody to interfere in that, is unconscionable. We need to enforce the law and arrest these bad guys. We've already arrested over 1,000 people in that state, and we're going to continue to do exactly what Congress has allowed us to do and what the law allows us to do.
Yeah. If you impede ICE while they're doing their job, you're breaking the law. I mean, you automatically cross the line from being law-abiding citizen to law-breaking citizen. You go from being innocent civilian to criminal. Just like that. And all you have to do is pull your car in front of an ICE agent or ram into an ICE agent or protest an ICE agent or hurl a frozen water bottle at ICE agents. These are all things that they're doing. These are all things that are happening in Minneapolis and elsewhere. And this is something that A, is not okay, and B, is something that you need to realize is going to land you in hot water. So, you can do it, but you're going to suffer the consequences. And there's nothing at all that ICE is going to do to stop. In fact, ICE is, ICE, is it 100 more? We knew it was going to happen. I mean, they called on it. Let's see, ICE officers in Minneapolis surge. It's over 100, hundreds more. Here we go. Let's go to CBS. Hundreds more federal agents being sent to Minneapolis, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem says. She announced on Sunday hundreds more federal agents are coming to Minneapolis as the Department of Homeland Security carries out what officials are calling the largest immigration operation ever. She said it's led to more than 1,000 arrests in the Twin Cities. As we uncover more of this criminal activity, we're going to continue to surge resources to make sure this abuse of government funds and government power no longer continues in Minnesota. Basically, Tampon Tim Walz has caused this. Tampon Tim Walz has caused this woman's death. And Tampon Tim Walz belongs at least in front of a jury, if not behind bars. And thanks to Kristi Noem, thanks to DOJ, thanks to Scott Bessent, thanks to President Donald Trump, that's hopefully very soon where he will be, instead of, walking around outside, looking at the impromptu memorial that's been set up on the street where an ICE officer was hit by a vehicle. By the way, none of those flowers are for the ICE agent, I don't think. I think they're all for the woman who died. I'm like 99%. I'm 99% sure. Listen, one other thing that I wanted to talk about was President Donald Trump. Again, this is something that is important. The airplane, the Air Force One plane, Donald Trump yesterday, he was headed to the airport. And what happened was there was a suspicious package. He was in West Palm Beach. He was at Mar-a-Lago, and he was leaving to come back to Washington, D.C. for his work week. And a suspicious package or suspicious parcel or something was found. It was a suspicious object. Pardon me. Here we go. ABC News. Secret Service found a suspicious object ahead of Trump's motorcade in Palm Beach as he was headed to the airport. Therefore, they had to take a different route. The finding warranted further investigation and caused the presidential motorcade to take a different route than normal. That was from Caroline Levitt. During advanced sweeps of PBI Airport, a suspicious object was discovered by the U.S. Secret Service. A further investigation was warranted, and the presidential motorcade route was adjusted accordingly. Further details on the object have not yet been released. But just so you know, there is constant vigilance, because whether it's Donald Trump or whether it's ICE agents or whether it's anyone else in the administration, I imagine Stephen Miller and Tom Homan and Kristi Noem, they all are getting threatened every single day. They're all just trying to get out there and do their jobs and protect the United States of America. And they are encountering threats on their lives, on their livelihoods, on their family, on their person. It is ridiculous, and also not totally unbelievable what they're dealing with. But they're dealing with it. nonetheless, while President Donald Trump continues to make America great again. Speaking of which, inflation is continuing to be a problem. And if you look at your investments and if you look at the money that you have, one of the big problems every American is facing is, yes, costs of everything are going up, but you know what else is going up? Inflation, which means the money that you've already saved and scrimped and put away for your retirement, it's not nearly as valuable as it used to be. It's lost probably 20% of its value thanks to Joe Biden and thanks to his inflationary measures. And that's why gold IRAs are a ridiculously amazing investment and why so many people are now jumping to gold. If you Google gold, man, you'll see the gold prices are up and people are taking their cash investments and their stock investments and moving to precious metals based and gold IRAs. Augusta Precious Metals, who we work very closely with, is one of these great places. And for over a decade, they've been helping people diversify a portion or all of their retirement into physical gold. And it's very easy to do. Not a lot of paperwork, nothing out of the ordinary. And these gold IRAs, so straightforward. And Augusta has an A+ BBB rating. They walk you through everything so you can protect yourself. And if you don't believe me, like I said, just look at the price of gold. Augusta's clients are seeing massive returns on their investment, not like your traditional stock-based IRA. You can go to our specific website. It's markswealthstrategy.com, markswealthstrategy.com, or you can text the word wealth to 35052, 35052. Either one of those will get you a free investment guide from Augusta Precious Metals, so you can investigate how to protect your life and your livelihood and your financial future with a precious metals-based gold IRA from our friends at Augusta Precious Metals. The website, again, is markswealthstrategy.com. There's a link in the description of this video if you're watching on Rumble or on YouTube, markswealthstrategy.com, or you can text the word wealth to 35052 for that free gold guide to see if a gold investment package is right for you and your future. In the meantime, don't forget to hit subscribe on this video so that you know whenever we go live, you know whenever we post new content. We're constantly posting new content. It's all the freaking time. Weekends, weekdays, weeknights, sometimes in the middle of the night, sometimes first thing in the morning. Whenever news breaks, we're there to bring it to you. And you need to make sure that you're subscribed to our YouTube channel or Rumble channel, whatever podcast platform you're listening to. Make sure you hit subscribe on Facebook and X because we are heading into one of the loudest and most tumultuous years on record. 2026 is going to be crazy. It already is. And it's just going to get crazier as the months go on. You need somebody bringing you the truth, letting you know where the evil doers are, where the evil is lurking, who's trying to take away your rights, and how we can all stick together and stand together, how we can all learn together, stay informed together, how we can all keep each other inspired and enlightened and entertained, and keep each other strong so that whenever the time comes that we get attacked, which is going to be often, we can all fight, fight, fight so we can save